Today is Wednesday, October 13th. What to know about the new travel rules just announced. The U.S. is making a change at the Canada and Mexico borders. Also, the FDA just gave the go-ahead to an e-cigarette for the first time ever. Plus, a big shift in health advice, what experts now say about taking a daily aspirin. What to watch for as William Shatner heads to space. And why more people are quitting their jobs now than in any other time in the last 2 decades. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Expect more decisions about COVID-19 booster shots this week. An expert advisory panel is expected to look at data from both Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. Then it will vote on whether to recommend the extra doses of those shots. Ahead of this week's meeting, the FDA released a review of data from Moderna. The vaccine maker says an extra half dose of its vaccine, at least 6 months after the second dose, can increase antibodies that fight off COVID-19. And that's important, since Moderna also says real-world evidence shows antibodies from the original vaccine wane over time. For now, though, the FDA says the research is not conclusive on that. In fact, there's still a lot of debate about whether boosters are needed at this point, since some say the original shots are still doing their job of keeping vaccinated people from getting severely sick or dying from COVID-19. Remember, at this point, the FDA has given the okay for boosters to certain Americans who got the Pfizer vaccine at least 6 months ago. So stay tuned to see if Americans who got Moderna and J&J shots could also have a booster option soon. For the first time in nearly 2 years, people in Canada and Mexico will soon be able to drive into the United States. The land borders have been closed to tourists since March of 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that means people have not been able to come here in cars, trucks, trains, or ferries unless they had an essential reason, such as trade. But the Biden administration says that will change next month. Fully vaccinated travelers will be able to come into the U.S. for any reason, even just to visit. Remember, last month, the U.S. announced it was also lifting the restrictions for vaccinated people who wanted to fly here. Of course, all of this only applies to legal entry into the U.S. Officials made it clear people who try to sneak into the country will still be deported. And by the way, Americans have already been able to travel to Canada and Mexico. There aren't any restrictions to go to Mexico. But for Canada, Americans do need to show that they're fully vaccinated and have also tested negative for COVID-19 within 72 hours before their trip. Federal immigration agents are no longer supposed to carry out mass workplace raids. For years, officers with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, aka ICE, have been raiding businesses and arresting workers suspected of living in the U.S. without legal permission. Some raids have ended with hundreds of arrests. And many presidents have supported these raids, saying they're strong deterrents against illegal immigration. But workers' groups have called them unfair and discriminatory. Either way, things are changing now. ICE agents are being told to focus instead on employers who are exploiting undocumented workers. The idea is to crack down on businesses that pay unfair wages, have unsafe working conditions, and more, because they think desperate immigrants might accept less than the standard. Government agencies are now supposed to drop a plan to encourage workers, documented or not, to report these types of issues without fear and to increase the penalties for bad employers. And this is just the latest in a series of changes. Already earlier this month, the Homeland Security Department issued new guidance for deportations. It said immigration status alone should not be the basis of a decision to deport someone, but that agents should instead focus on undocumented immigrants who really pose a threat to national security and public safety. A Southern California wildfire is growing out of control this morning. It's already forced hundreds of people from their homes, and even more are being told to evacuate now. The Alisal fire is burning near Santa Barbara. It's not clear yet what started it, but nearly 21 square miles have been scorched so far, and as of this morning, it's only 5% contained. Hundreds of firefighters have been trying to get a hold of it, but winds have been fanning the flames. In fact, it was so windy yesterday, air crews had to be grounded because of unsafe flying conditions. By the way, the same storm that brought high winds to places like California, Nevada, and New Mexico brought heavy snow to the Rockies, and it's still falling this morning. Yep, this is the first major snowstorm of the season. And when it's all said and done, parts of Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, Utah, and Idaho could see up to 2 feet of snow. It's windy in those places too, so some people could be dealing with blizzard conditions. On top of that, temperatures are far below average and record lows are possible. Meanwhile, most of the eastern half of the country is getting mild, almost summer-like weather for at least the next several days. For the first time, the FDA has authorized an e-cigarette. Specifically, the company RJ Reynolds can sell 3 of its Views vape products. The federal health officials say data from the company shows the e-cigarette helped smokers cut back on traditional cigarettes, which lowered their exposure to harmful chemicals. E-cigarettes still vaporize a nicotine-laced liquid, though, and they've become popular among teens in recent years who had never smoked before. So RJ Reynolds will face certain restrictions when it comes to advertising, and it's not allowed to sell certain flavored products. The 3 that got the green light are all tobacco flavored. Now, if you're thinking e-cigarette products have been on the market already for years, you would be right. But the FDA has been taking a closer look at all these products lately to decide which can stay on the market and which need to go. So far, the FDA has said it's rejected applications for more than 1 million e-cigarettes and related products because they might appeal to underage teens. The FDA has still not decided what to do about some of the biggest players in the e-cigarette industry, including products from the company Juul. Advice about aspirin is changing. Medical experts now say adults should not be taking aspirin on a daily basis, even in low doses. The highly influential U.S. Preventative Services Task Force now says older patients who have never had a heart attack or stroke should not be taking aspirin as a preventative measure. It says aspirin could cause internal bleeding and that the risk outweighs any potential benefits for most people. Now, that said, low-dose aspirin is still recommended for people who've already had a heart attack or stroke, and either way, the panel says all patients should ask their doctors before starting or stopping a daily aspirin regimen. More news is just ahead, but first, let's take a quick break to thank our sponsor. What do you get when you combine comfort, style, and sustainability? You get Rothy's shoes. Yes, Rothy's not only has new, soft, plush, and super cute merino wool styles as part of its exclusive autumn collection, but all of their shoes are also sustainably made with recycled materials like plastic water bottles. They're also fully machine washable, so we're talking about a win-win-win here. I already have a pair of their merino wool flats that I adore, and Rothy's is always first on my list when I'm ready for something new. Oh, and good news for the guys listening, Rothy's shoes are not just for women anymore. That's right, Rothy's now sells men's sneakers and men's driving loafers. In fact, Forbes calls Rothy's men's shoes a, quote, travel must-have. So to help you welcome fall season in style, Rothy's is doing something special. That's right, they gave us the chance to share this super rare opportunity with our listeners for a limited time. So right now, you can get $20 off your first purchase at rothys.com/newsworthy. That's Rothys, spelled ROTHYS, rothys.com/newsworthy. Head to rothys.com/newsworthy to find your new favorites today. It seems the American economy is not rebounding quite as quickly as expected. That's according to a new outlook from the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. The global lending agency says it now expects the U.S. economy to grow 6% this year, but just 3 months ago, the IMF forecast said 7%. So why the change? Well, the biggest reason is supply chain issues. Since inventory is down, manufacturing and sales have taken a hit. Still, the IMF says the American economy is growing, not shrinking, and that pattern is expected to continue for the next couple of years at least. You may have noticed it's costing a lot more to fill up our tanks these days. AAA says the average national price for a gallon of gasoline hit $3.27 this week. That's more expensive than at any other time in the last 7 years. And this is typically the time of year when prices start to go back down, since people tend to drive less once summer is over. But experts say the problem is higher costs for crude oil are being passed on to drivers. The National Hockey League is officially back in action for what's expected to be its first normal season since 2019. League organizers say teams will play a full 82-game schedule, and it all began last night. That's especially exciting for fans since the last 2 seasons were shortened because of COVID-19. This time around, though, the NHL says nearly all players are vaccinated. There are also no more quarantine restrictions between the U.S. and Canada, so even those games are back to normal, and arenas are expected to be at full capacity. Another big change this season, hockey games are on ESPN for the first time in nearly 20 years. ESPN says it's using more cameras on the ice to give fans a closer look at all of the action. Plus, more behind-the-scenes footage, like locker room cameras to capture coaches' pre-game speeches. The largest toy maker in the world says it wants to make playtime more inclusive. Lego is removing what it calls gender bias and other harmful stereotypes from its toys and marketing campaigns. So, for example, toys will no longer have labels saying whether they're for boys or for girls. The company announced the change after surveying young children and their parents across 7 countries, including the U.S. Lego says those surveys showed young girls are more likely to play with whatever, even toys that are traditionally for boys. But most boys say they still worry about getting teased if they play with so-called girls' toys. Lego says it hopes by making changes, it'll encourage both young girls and boys to pursue their ambitions and not feel limited by gender stereotypes. Today's the day. Captain Kirk is blasting off into space for real, as long as the weather cooperates. 90-year-old actor William Shatner, who played the iconic role of Captain James Kirk on Star Trek, will become the oldest person to fly in space. The Blue Origin spacecraft will go 66 miles into the air, where Shatner, a Blue Origin executive, and 2 paying passengers will experience weightlessness. The flight will last about 15 minutes from start to finish. The launch is scheduled to start at 9:30 this morning Eastern Time, and the whole event is being streamed live online. And that's it for the main news today, but now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, a quick break for our sponsor, BetterHelp. If you have that nagging feeling that something is off or that something is stopping you from being your happiest self, please know you're not alone, and it doesn't have to be that way. Whether it's the pandemic, work stress, family conflict, trauma, or anything else that's interfering with your life, BetterHelp can assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. They have counselors who are specialized in a wide variety of areas, and everything you tell them stays completely confidential. You always connect in a safe and private online environment, and it's convenient and easy. You can send a message to your counselor anytime from the comfort of your own home. Plus, schedule weekly video or phone sessions if you want. It's also more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. I want you to start living a happier life today. And as a newsworthy listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Join more than 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Work Wednesday. More people have been quitting their jobs than at any other time in the last 21 years. A new Labor Department report says 4.3 million Americans quit their jobs in August, and that's almost 3% of the American workforce. Part of what's going on is workers have more options. There are more job openings than there are applicants, so employees can demand higher pay at new jobs. Fear of new COVID-19 outbreaks may have also inspired people to quit. As the AP reports, the highest quit rates were in industries that involve close contact with other people, especially in the hospitality industry. Retail, healthcare, and social assistance jobs also saw high turnover rates. On the flip side, the turnover rate is not as severe in industries like manufacturing, construction, transportation, and warehousing. The Labor Department's report also found quit rates to be mostly flat among people in professional and business fields who largely have the option to work from home. All right, thank you so much for listening today and joining us as part of your everyday routine. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.